everyone, and welcome to this beginner prompting session that I'm calling the 5 Golden Rules of Prompting. Now, if you are new to using AI, or if you're just getting your feet wet with different models, or you're not quite getting the results you were hoping for out of your prompts, I'm going to go over some basic principles that can help you. Now, over the last 2.5 years of not only using AI, but teaching it here at the FFA, I can tell you that no matter the model, no matter the level of sophistication, where we were at with the AI development, anything like that, even what I'm trying to do with the AI, these 5 principles have held true. Now, the tactics on how I've implemented them can change drastically. Back when we were using a 3,000 context model and now we have 1 million, that has changed. How much better they perform, what sort of tasks I'm looking for. That can all change my tactics, but these 5 golden rules have held true. And I'm going to share them with you now and show you some examples of how you can start keeping these in mind when creating your prompts so that you get the best results out of the AI. The first one, be specific. Now, it goes without saying the AI can't read your mind, but the AI has also never had human experience. It doesn't know what it feels like to slam its thumb in a car door. It just knows that, statistically speaking, after the words thumb, door, slam are together in a piece of prose, there is a statistically significant probability that the word ouch will come after it. So, what you might think is obvious, what seems obvious to people, is not necessarily obvious to an AI. So, we always have to spell it out in the clearest terms possible. And here at the FFA, we like to use the how, what, why method. How would you like the response to be? What are you looking for? And why are you asking it? And that why is so often overlooked, but can be so key. So to show you that, here in another tab, I have the public domain version of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. And it has a very basic blurb here. It's more of a synopsis, I would say. So I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to head over here to Raptorite. For my AI settings, I'm going to be using OpenAI's GPT-5. I have a temperature of 1 and medium reasoning. So just to keep apples to apples, I'm going to keep all my prompts using that model. And I'll simply ask it, rewrite this to make it better. And I'm not even telling it it's a blurb. I'm just saying, rewrite this to make it better. And here's what GPT-5 came up with. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz is a beloved classic that has enchanted readers of all ages for generations. This doesn't sell any better as a blurb than this does. Like, this doesn't sound any better. I would think AI did a bad job. It didn't do a bad job. It doesn't what this is, other than a description of The Wizard of Oz, the book, and it doesn't know why it's rewriting it, how you want it rewritten. It doesn't understand any of that. Maybe you're just looking to proofread it. Maybe that would be better. Maybe you want simpler language. Maybe you're trying to send an email that tells your friend what The Wonderful Wizard of Oz is. It has no idea. That's why it doesn't understand what better is, and it rewrote it just trying to guess. AI is like a happy golden retriever. It wants to do what you want. It just doesn't always know what that is, and it's not great at guessing. So don't make it guess. You won't be happy with the results. So let's try the how, what, why method. And I'm going to put a prompt in here. And by the magic of television, here is my prompt now. Please read the following sales blurb on the Amazon website for The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. That is the what. Rewrite and expand the blurb so that it starts with a 1 to 2 short sentence catchy hook, followed by the inciting incident and main character's dilemma, presented in a way that pulls the reader into this magical fantasy world, then followed by a call to action to buy the book. The how, exactly what I want to see. The goal is to rewrite this blurb to maximize sales on the Amazon platform by interesting readers to either one-click purchase it or read the sample chapter. That's the why. Let me paste the original back in. And now let's see what we get. And now we can see a storm carries her away. Magic is waiting when she lands. When a tornado rips Dorothy from the quiet plains, she awakens in the dazzling, dangerous land of Oz, a place where roads gleam yellow, forests whisper, and witches rule from the shadows. Now, granted, none of that was in the original blurb, but because The Wizard of Oz is in public domain, it is available out on the web. It has it in its trading data. It understands the story of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. So if this is your own book, you would probably have to prompt a little more of this information and maybe give it a synopsis of the book. But that's why I kind of cheated by giving it The Wizard of Oz, because it already knows the story. With an enchanted pair of shoes on her feet and a loyal little dog by her side, Dorothy steps onto the yellow brick road and straight into a journey that will test her courage, her heart, and her hope. And then, ready to be swept away into one of the most beloved adventures of all time, click Buy Now with one click to start the journey today, or read a free sample and take your first steps down the yellow brick road. So again, not perfect, but much, much better. So I am going to insert this, and we will call this one Be Specific. Let's go back and look at our next golden rule of prompting. Break the task down. So you want to ask for the smallest component or part of the task that the AI can reliably perform. And that the AI can reliably perform is where tactics have changed over time. Back when we were working with the early models, we had to break our stories and our outlines down to the beat level because that was the smallest task that it could reliably perform. AIs are much more sophisticated now, and they can do much more than a single beat at once. So you can ask it to do scenes, even full chapters. With enough information and a good enough task, you can get a very good chapter, sometimes even 2, maybe 3 chapters at a time, depending. But generally now with the foundational models, you can get a chapter reliably. Maybe that'll change, and sometime in the future you can get a full act. Tactics will change on this, but you always want to figure out what you can break it down to. Some of the smaller models, if you are running an LLM locally, or if you go to Open Router and use some of the inexpensive or free models, or some of the ones that are unmoderated so you can write not safe for work, they might not be as sophisticated as these foundational models, so you might have to break it down a little more. So that's where the tactic will change, but the idea, the principle is the same: break the task down. So let's try a new document, and we'll call this one Break It Down. So here's a prompt. Please write a 60,000 word space fantasy using interesting characters, plot twists, and a space dwelling sentient bird of paradise potted plant. So I want an entire novel in one go. And let's see if it can do that. Okay, and you can see it did not even attempt to do it because it knew it couldn't. I can't fit a full 60,000 word novel into one message, but I can write it in installments and deliver the complete story over a series of parts. Below, you'll find the full outline and cast, followed by the opening chapters. If you like the direction and voice, I'll continue with the next chapter on your queue. So I'm going to scroll to the bottom and go ahead and insert this so we can take a look at it. But because this model, GPT-5, is a thinking model and it is a more sophisticated model, it automatically did what I didn't. It broke it down. First, let's break down and give you a full outline, then a cast, followed by the opening chapters. And if we broke it down even further, we would be more successful. Starting by, instead of asking for everything we needed, maybe asking for just a hook or a premise or a main character, their conflict. So starting with smaller components and building those on top of each other. It knew in order to write a 60,000 word novel, you will need a title, a tagline, characters, world and magic notes, story outline, major twists, and now the chapters 1 and 2. And it didn't even finish. So I would have to say continue and it would continue, but we don't need it to actually write. So it is a bit of a balancing act. Like I said, this does change with models, but also you could see by even breaking it down into characters, world and magic, story outline, the outline isn't very detailed. So if I had broken it down a little further, asked for more about my main characters, it would have given more information on just that single item. And then I could build it up and maybe just do act 1, and it would build act 1 out further and more detailed. So you don't want to ask for too much because it can't do it. And you don't want to ask for too little because you'll waste your time and context and money and everything. But if you find the right balancing act, you can get very deep into individual components. And then with our next golden rule, we can start putting them together to eventually build a bigger story. And now rule number 3 is to define your parameters. You and the AI don't always speak the same language. As in, you can use the same words, but they may mean something different to the AI than it does to you. And unfortunately, the AI's training is already set. You can't change its training data, no matter how many times you prompt or in any way you prompt. So it's up to you to learn what it wants or what it's looking for. So those are the keywords and tricky phrases you need to know with prompting. So let's look back at our be specific. The first one I just gave it the blurb from Amazon. And because it was kind of short, it might have been a summary, it might have been something sending in an email. It had no idea that it was a sales blurb. But how do you know what the AI calls this? Maybe it thinks a sales blurb is what goes inside of an email or what is on the back of a book cover jacket. How do we know we are targeting the correct structure that we want the AI to be following? We have to simply ask it. So we'll create a new document, call it parameters, and simply ask, what do you call the information describing a book on the sales page of Amazon? So typically a product description, also called the book description or blurb. The structured specs, publisher page, ISBN, etc. appear under product details. In my first prompt, it obviously understood enough what I meant, and I gave it enough structure about how I wanted it that the output was what I wanted. But if you're not getting what you want, ask it to describe what you're looking for. Perhaps it's looking for a different set of words, or it thinks the words you're using are something totally different. The fourth principle here is to layer your prompts. Prompts and responses should be built off one another. This is the basis of sequencing. So for example, here I asked it for a 60,000 word novel. It couldn't do that, but it gave me a few things: title, tagline, characters, outline, etc. And based on that, it was going to start writing. You can do that even more. Let's create another new document and we'll call this layering. And I simply asked it now, please give me a hooks, premise, and story summary for a space fantasy using the same as before, a space fantasy with a sentient bird of paradise potted plants. So it should give me just those small pieces of information, which is breaking it down. Okay, it looks like GPT-5 went all out. We have a hook, a premise, cast highlights, and a story summary, along with some twists. I'll go ahead and insert this. And then at the bottom, I'm going to simply ask for a list of characters that I'll need to write based on the hook, premise, and story summary. And the layering process is asking it based on the previous information, go ahead and build off of that. And then for the next part, we're actually going to go into Golden Rule 5, which is revise step by step. And I'll show you that in conjunction with this layering process. But we're going to have the AI reiterate and incorporate changes in small incremental chunks. So here we can see, based on the information it already gave us, it's building out protagonist, crew, antagonist, and other waypoint alleys, foils, and gatekeepers. So I'll insert that. And then at the bottom again, I'll simply ask it, based on this list of characters, please improve the hook, premise, and story summary to include all of the characters and conflicts involved in this story. Essentially, the AI can build the hook, premise, and story summary. You can go back and forth with it to edit it, to improve it. It can make all the characters that are necessary. Again, you can edit it, work with it. Before I even get to this next step, I would usually build out probably the main characters and antagonists a little more, give them a more well-rounded character and characteristics and backstory and wounds and all of that. And then once I have that more built out, I would ask it to go back to previous steps and again layer it. We now have more information about the characters and their conflicts with other characters. How can that be built in to improve the hook, premise, and story summary? And as we can see, here we have a new hook, an expanded premise, an expanded story summary with more twists. And it didn't actually even finish, so we can even have it continue. But it is a now more expanded world, more twists, everything that we expect. It's getting deeper with each layering process of going back and forth, of then adding more information, using the previous information to build forward, and then using that new information to go back and strengthen the original information. And we see once it continued, we even have seeds for the next story, and based on this, we have a lot more to go off of for an outline. So that way the outline won't be as thin either. So those are our 5 golden rules of prompting. They might seem basic, but it is all in the tactics and the implementation that can make all the difference. And usually when you're not getting what you want out of the AI, it's because your prompt has fallen a bit short on one of these areas. So take a look at them, start thinking about how you can expand your prompts, whether it's to be more specific, break the task down to smaller components, defining your parameters or your wording better in the prompt, layering the prompt, and revising it step by step. So thank you for joining the Future Fiction Academy. We should have some links down below in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. And we'll see you again in the next video. Happy writing!